Alright, so I have already sketched out the drawing of the place that I want to fly over for my Faith Ringgold inspired. Now, I gave you this great big piece of paper. So because I gave you this great big piece of paper, don't draw a tiny little thing in the middle and a tiny little person up here. That's not why I gave you a great big piece of paper. You always want to fill the space. Even if you have a small piece of paper, fill the space. So as you can see, I've really filled the space with my drawing. Then I'm going to draw my person up here, and I'm going to use the block method here rather than the stick person method. So I'm going to draw each one of my body parts in these blocks or in these rectangles here. So rectangle for my body, rectangle for the arm, two rectangles actually for the arm, one for the upper arm and one for the lower arm, and then we're just going to do little circle fists there. And again, two rectangles there, and then my legs are also going to be two rectangles each, where at the joint they're going to change directions and be different rectangles. And then the feet, again, just rectangles, and because I'm flying, they're just going to be pointing the same direction. And add the facial features, the hair, the nose, the eye, and lips here, just all penciled in. We're going to color this in later, so don't worry about coloring anything in with your pencil, just draw it out. Alright, now that I have everything all penciled out, I have my football stadium for Chiefs Stadium and myself flying over it. I'm ready to outline everything in Sharpie, and you can use thick Sharpie and thin Sharpie. So for the big areas, I'm going to use the thicker Sharpie, and then for the more detailed areas, I'll use the thin Sharpie. And this is just to define our spaces so that when we paint, the paint won't sort of all blend together. We'll still see those nice drawn lines. My crayons for the small detail areas. So for the body, for myself, I'm going to color in with crayons, and then anywhere else I want to use the wax resist method, I would use that there. So I've got my red Chiefs shirt on and some jeans, and I'm flying over the Chiefs Stadium. I'm also using white because I'm going to be using a wax resist method for the white lines in the parking lot and in the football field. Now we're going to use liquid temperas. You could also use watercolors, but we've got a big area, so we're going to use liquid temperas, which does do a great job of filling a big space, but you remember you need to get those paints nice and wet. I use a big brush for big areas and then use the small detail brush to go around the little detailed areas. So see, I fill in most of my sky with that big brush. And then to get around the sign and to get around my body, I'm going to use a small detailed brush. I'm not just going to slop paint over myself when it's much better to just carefully go around the body. But see how the change in materials really makes that flying person kind of pop out of the sky there. And I'm just going to continue to paint everything in using my temper cakes. forgot to write in my InZone Chief's name there. And even though I've got crayon on the white part of that, I'm still going to try to draw around it. It's just sort of a guide. Now I will go all the way over the lines in the parking lot and then use a tissue to dab away the paint. Now it's time for the fabric. Now I have lots of fabric squares, and we've left a 2-inch border and we have 2-inch fabric scraps. I got these scraps from an upholstery store who was getting rid of their previous year's inventory, and then I just cut them into 2-inch squares. You're going to get liquid glue, and you are going to put 2 lines, long lines of liquid glue in the border there. Just 2 long lines. And then just start laying those fabric scraps down, and you can have just a completely random order of fabric scraps, or if you're able to find like scraps and want to make a pattern, you can do that. Just whatever you want to put down is fine by me, and fill that border up, and it will look like this was painted on a quilt, just as Faith Ringgold painted her art on a quilt. Glue down any strays, and you are all done.